There comes a moment in everyone's life when they realize something uncomfortable, something they often try to avoid, something they wish wasn't true. It's this: the world does not slow down for you. The world doesn't pause because you feel tired, hurt, unsure, or unprepared. Life keeps moving. Pressure keeps building. Challenges keep rising. And if your mind isn't strong enough to rise with them, the world will crush the parts of you that weren't built to endure. But here's the empowering truth: your mind can be tougher than anything life throws at you. Not by accident, not by luck, by intention, by training, by repetition, by choice. Life isn't about avoiding the storms. It's about building a mind strong enough to walk through them. When people say life is hard, what they're really saying is that their mindset isn't ready for the weight of life. Hard times don't break people. Untoughened minds do. And every single day the world tests you. Not because it hates you, not because you're unlucky, but because pressure is life's way of asking, how strong are you willing to become? Let me tell you something powerful. You don't become mentally tough by living an easy life. You don't build resilience by avoiding discomfort. You don't build confidence by hiding from challenges. You only become strong by facing what scares you, what intimidates you, what tries to control you. The world is full of people who want the reward but refuse the resistance. They want confidence without risk, strength without struggle, growth without pain. But the mind does not grow through comfort. It grows through challenge. Think about steel. Steel is only strong because it's forged in fire, pressure, heat, impact. Without that process, it's weak, fragile, and useless. Your mind is the same. If you avoid the fire, you avoid your strength. You are here right now because some part of you is done being fragile. Some part of you is tired of bending under pressure. Some part of you is ready to become unshakable. Let's talk about mental toughness, not as an idea, but as a disciplined reality. 1. Mental toughness begins with what you feed your mind. A weak mind is malnourished. A strong mind is well-fed. You cannot fill your mind with negativity, fear, gossip, excuses, and distractions and expect strength to show up when life gets hard. You become what you consume. You think like what you surround yourself with. If you feed your mind weakness, you'll act with weakness. If you feed it strength, you'll respond with strength. Start feeding your mind ideas that challenge you, people that inspire you, goals that stretch you, standards that elevate you. You can't think like the average person and expect an exceptional life. 2, mental toughness requires a commitment to discomfort. People talk about wanting growth, but they flee discomfort the second it arrives. They quit when it's boring. They quit when it's tiring. They quit when it stops being fun. They quit because they expect the world to adjust to them instead of adjusting themselves to the world. If you always stay where it's comfortable, you will always remain who you are. Your next level is always hiding behind something uncomfortable. The conversation you're avoiding, the discipline you keep postponing, the early morning you keep skipping, the truth you refuse to confront, the habit you know you need to break. The world rewards those who step into discomfort, not those who run from it. 3, mental toughness means taking control of your inner voice. There is a voice inside you, the one that doubts, fears, criticizes, and hesitates. If you don't learn to master that voice, it will master you. That inner voice can talk you out of opportunities. It can talk you out of growth. It can talk you out of becoming who you were meant to be. But here's the secret. You don't silence that voice. You overpower it. You replace I can't with I'm capable. You replace I'm not ready with I'll learn. You replace it's too hard with it's worth it. You replace what if I fail with what if I grow. Your mind learns to obey the voice you repeat the most. So ask yourself, are you speaking to yourself like someone you want to follow or someone you want to escape? 4, mental toughness is built through discipline. Discipline is doing what must be done, even when you don't feel like it. Anyone can act strong when they're motivated. Anyone can take action when it's easy. Anyone can be committed when it's exciting. But mental toughness is built in the moments where motivation disappears. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you strengthen your identity. Every time you show up when it's inconvenient, you build confidence. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, you reinforce your mind. The world bends for people who refuse to bend for their excuses. 5, mental toughness thrives under pressure. Pressure isn't your enemy. It's your trainer. Pressure is the gym for your mind. Pressure is the teacher that reveals your weaknesses so you can strengthen them. Stop fearing pressure. Start using it. Stop wishing for easy days. Start wishing for stronger thinking. Stop complaining about obstacles. Start recognizing that they're sculpting your potential. You don't grow because life gets easier. You grow because you get tougher. 6. Mental toughness means choosing response over reaction. Weak minds react. Strong minds choose their response. You don't control everything that happens, but you always control your meaning. You always control your actions. You always control who you become because of the situation. When something difficult happens, ask, what does this make possible? How does this grow me? What strength is this developing? What skill am I being forced to learn? Your life changes the moment you stop reacting to the world and start directing your mind. 7. Mental toughness creates an unbreakable you. When your mind is tough, the world can hit you, but it can't collapse you. You bend, but you never break. You feel fear, but you move anyway. You face challenges, but you don't surrender. You get knocked down, but you rise faster than before. A tough mind doesn't make life easier. A tough mind makes you unstoppable. And that is the point, because at the end of the day, the world will always test you. It will always challenge you. It will always pressure you. It will always demand strength. You either build that strength, or the world breaks what you refuse to strengthen. So today, make a decision. The kind of decision that reshapes a life. Decide that your mind will be stronger than your circumstances. Decide that your potential is more powerful than your excuses. Decide that your growth matters more than your comfort. Decide that life will not break you because you will toughen your mind until nothing can. Your power begins here. Your strength begins now. Toughen your mind or the world will do it for you. Your mind must be stronger than your circumstances or the world will control your direction. Most people live their entire lives believing circumstances are in charge, believing that their environment, their past, their pain, their losses, their upbringing, or their current situation has the final say in who they become. But the truth is, circumstances only have power when your mind allows them to. The strongest people you've ever heard of didn't rise because they had perfect lives. They rose because they built a mind that refused to bow to the conditions around them. When your mind becomes strong, circumstances stop being walls and start becoming weights. Tools that build you rather than barriers that block you. A weak mind looks at life and says, I can't because of what's happening to me. A strong mind says, I can because of what's happening to me. That shift is where everything changes. Most people never develop that shift because they never challenge their mind. They let circumstances speak louder than their own inner voice. They let difficulty dictate their destiny. They let fear make decisions for them. They let pain convince them to stop. They let temporary conditions decide their long-term future. And when you live like that, you're not steering your life anymore. Your circumstances are... Think about how many people lose themselves the moment something unexpected happens. A job loss, and they collapse. A relationship ending, and they stop believing in their worth. A financial hit, and they quit pursuing their goals. A health challenge, and they stop imagining a future. Circumstances push them, and they allow themselves to fall. Not because they are incapable, but because their mind was never trained to resist, redirect, or rise above what hits them. Your mind is the captain of your life. Circumstances are only the weather. Some days bring storms, some days bring sunshine, some days feel like hurricanes you never saw coming. But storms don't decide where the ship goes. The captain does. And if the captain is strong, the ship survives every storm. If the captain panics, the ship sinks even when the waves aren't that strong. The world doesn't break people. It reveals the strength of the captain inside them. If that captain is fragile, circumstances take control. If that captain is powerful, circumstances lose the ability to steer. Building a mind stronger than your circumstances means learning to think beyond what you see. Most people trust what their eyes show them more than what their mind can create. They see a setback and assume it's permanent. They see failure and assume it's the end. They see difficulty and assume they're unprepared. But strong minds don't give meaning based on the moment. They give meaning based on their mission. A temporary setback doesn't define them because they've trained themselves to interpret the world through strength, not fear. Strong minds ask different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? They ask, how can this grow me? Instead of, what if this goes wrong? They ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of collapsing under pressure, they lean into it. Instead of allowing circumstances to create doubt, they use circumstances to create clarity. They understand that life doesn't get easier for anyone. What changes is the mental armor you carry into it. Training your mind begins with awareness. You must become aware of how easily circumstances influence you. Do setbacks instantly drain your energy? Do failures convince you to stop trying? Do people's opinions shape your decisions? Do bad days alter your goals? Do obstacles make you shrink? These reactions reveal the strength of your mind. A strong mind is not one that feels no emotion. It is one that does not let emotion drive the steering wheel of life. A strong mind feels everything and still chooses direction with intention. The world will always test the strength of your mind. That's not unfair, that's life. The pressure you feel isn't random and it isn't punishment. It's the universe asking you, are you ready to grow? Every challenge is a measurement of mental strength. When you avoid challenges, you avoid growth. When you face them, you toughen your mental muscles. Just as physical strength requires resistance, mental strength requires adversity. A life without pressure produces a weak mind. A life with tested resolve produces an unshakable one. Most people wait for circumstances to become ideal before they take action. They say they'll start when things settle, when things get easier, when they feel more ready, when the timing is better. But strong minds don't wait for perfect conditions because perfect conditions rarely show up. They create momentum in imperfect circumstances. They make decisions in uncertainty. They move forward even when the environment isn't friendly. They understand that waiting for circumstances to align is the fastest way to let the world steal your direction. You toughen your mind by deciding that external conditions will no longer dictate who you are or how far you go. You practice controlling your thoughts the same way you'd practice strengthening a muscle. You challenge yourself daily. You step into discomfort intentionally. You train yourself to stay calm under pressure. You build habits that reinforce discipline instead of relying on emotion. You surround yourself with influences that raise your standards, not lower them. You learn to observe your mind instead of obeying every fearful thought it produces. You teach your mind that it is in charge, not your fear, not your doubt, not your circumstances. A strong mind is built through repetition. Every time you refuse to quit, you strengthen your identity. Every time you choose action over excuses, your mind becomes more powerful. Every time you stay focused despite distraction, your direction becomes clearer. Every time you rise after falling, you increase capacity. Eventually, the world stops being something you react to and becomes something you navigate with confidence. Circumstances lose their power because your mind has become the authority. When your mind is stronger than your circumstances, life doesn't become perfect. Challenges still come. Pressure still rises. Unexpected changes still appear. But the difference is that you now stand unshaken. You respond instead of react. You lead instead of follow. You choose direction instead of being pushed by whatever happens next. The world can try to move you, but your mind will always bring you back to your path. Discomfort is the training ground where all mental toughness is built. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort, believing that comfort will bring them peace, success, confidence, or clarity. But comfort doesn't create any of those things. Comfort creates stagnation. Comfort creates softness. Comfort creates a mind that collapses under pressure because it was never trained to endure anything beyond what felt easy. When everything around you becomes too comfortable, your mind forgets how powerful it can be. It forgets how to adapt, how to push, how to stay resilient, how to stay focused when life becomes unpredictable. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the catalyst that forces the mind to grow beyond its current limits. Every breakthrough in your life began with some form of discomfort. Think about learning something new, starting something unfamiliar, facing a fear, stepping into a challenge, or dealing with a setback. None of those moments felt comfortable. They stretched you. They forced you to think differently. They required courage. They required effort. They required patience. And because they required more from you, you became more. Discomfort shapes a person more than comfort ever will. Comfort keeps you the same. Discomfort transforms you into someone stronger. Most people want growth without the growing pains. They want strength without strain. They want resilience without resistance. They want success without stress. But the human mind is strengthened the same way a muscle is strengthened, through tension, challenge, and pressure. Muscles don't grow when they lift light weights. They grow when they lift something that feels heavy. The mind works the same way. When you face things that feel heavy, you create mental strength that light conditions could never build. Discomfort reveals who you are and who you can become. It exposes your limits, but it also expands them. It forces you to confront your fears. your insecurities, your doubts, your excuses. It shines light on the areas where you've been hiding. It makes you aware of the beliefs that have been quietly controlling your life. Without discomfort, you never discover what you are truly capable of. You never learn how much potential is hidden inside you. You never see how strong you can become when weakness is no longer an option. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not fearless. They are comfortable being uncomfortable. They train their mind to stay steady in situations where most people break. They endure what others avoid. They lean into challenges others run from. They understand that discomfort is temporary, but the strength it builds is permanent. They are willing to experience short-term struggle for long-term power. They don't view discomfort as punishment. They view it as preparation. The moment you stop avoiding discomfort is the moment your life begins to change. You start doing things you once thought were impossible. You start making decisions based on strength instead of fear. You start trusting yourself in a deeper way because you've proven to yourself that you can handle difficult moments. You don't panic when things get hard because your mind is familiar with challenge. You've trained yourself to stay grounded, to stay composed, to stay focused. You've learned to breathe through pressure instead of breaking under it. Discomfort is also the doorway to clarity. When you push yourself into unfamiliar territory, you discover what matters to you. You learn what you truly want. You see what you're willing to fight for. Comfort clouds your vision, making everything feel vague and distant. Discomfort sharpens your focus. It forces you to choose, to commit, to act with intention. When you're uncomfortable, you're alert, you're awake, you're aware of your weaknesses, your strengths, and your priorities. Discomfort wakes you up in ways comfort never will. It also builds discipline. Discipline is not formed when life is easy. It is formed when you choose to follow through even when everything inside you wants to stop. When you wake up early even though your body wants more sleep. When you continue working even though your mind feels tired. When you stay committed even when the excitement has faded. When you push forward even when you can't see results yet. These moments of discomfort create a mental structure inside you that becomes unshakable. You begin to trust yourself, not because things are easy, but because you've proven you can stay consistent when they're not. Discomfort creates emotional resilience as well. When you avoid discomfort, your emotions control you. Stress overwhelms you. Fear paralyzes you. Doubt makes decisions for you. But when you consistently put yourself in uncomfortable situations, your emotional threshold expands. You learn to regulate your thoughts under pressure. You learn to manage fear instead of being controlled by it. You learn to stay calm when others unravel. Emotional resilience is not something you're born with. It is something built through repeated exposure to discomfort. The fear of discomfort is often worse than the discomfort itself. The mind exaggerates what could go wrong. It imagines the worst possible outcomes. It tries to protect you by convincing you that staying comfortable is safer. But the danger of comfort is quiet. Slowly destroys your potential without you noticing. It convinces you that you're okay staying small. It convinces you that mediocrity is acceptable. It convinces you to settle. But discomfort never lets you settle. It pulls you forward into growth you might never have chosen on your own. There will always be two paths in front of you, the path of comfort and the path of growth. The comfortable path is smooth, predictable, easy, and safe, but it leads to regret. The path of growth is uneven, unpredictable, challenging, and uncomfortable, but it leads to confidence, strength, purpose, and self-respect. When you choose the uncomfortable path repeatedly, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop viewing yourself as someone who needs comfort. You start seeing yourself as someone capable of more than you previously imagined. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Every version of you that you dream of becoming exists on the other side of discomfort. The stronger, wiser, more resilient version of you is waiting beyond the moments that challenge you. Every time you embrace discomfort, you move closer to that version. You break old patterns. You replace weakness with strength. You rewrite your identity. You step into the person you were meant to become. Most people stay stuck not because they lack ability, but because they refuse to endure discomfort long enough to see what they're truly capable of. They quit too early. They retreat the moment things feel tough. They interpret discomfort as a sign they're on the wrong path, when in reality it's the clearest sign they're on the right one. Growth is not comfortable. Transformation is not easy. Becoming stronger never feels gentle. But in choosing discomfort, you choose evolution. You choose courage. You choose potential. You choose the path that leads you to a mind powerful enough to handle anything the world throws your way. The voice you feed becomes the voice that leads your life. Every person carries an internal narrator that speaks louder than anything happening outside of them. This voice influences choices, reactions, confidence, discipline, and direction. It can lift you or crush you. It can push you forward or chain you in place. The voice inside you is constantly shaping who you become, and whether you realize it or not, you are feeding that voice every single day. The thoughts you repeat, the beliefs you entertain, the words you say to yourself, they all become fuel, and whatever you fuel becomes the dominant force guiding your life. Most people don't pay attention to what they feed their inner voice. They let it absorb negativity, fear, comparison, judgment, doubt, and insecurity without question. They let their mind take in every complaint, every fear-based thought, every self-limiting belief as if it were truth. Over time, that becomes the voice they follow. The voice that says, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, it's too late, I don't deserve better, I always fail, people like me don't succeed. They don't realize they created that voice by feeding it those messages repeatedly. The mind doesn't decide what stays and what goes. You do. The mind simply amplifies whatever you give it. The internal voice is a mirror of your mental diet. If you consume weakness, you think weak thoughts. If you consume strength, you think strong thoughts. The challenge is that the voice you hear the most becomes the one you believe the most, even if it's wrong, even if it's destructive. Even if it was planted there years ago by someone who doubted you, criticized you, or hurt you. Over time, your mind accepts repeated thoughts as fact, regardless of whether they help you or harm you. This is why some people sabotage themselves without even understanding why. They keep failing because their inner voice keeps telling them they're not capable of winning. They keep choosing unhealthy habits because their inner voice keeps repeating that change is too difficult. They stay in situations that drain them because the inner voice says they don't deserve better. Their life becomes a reflection of the voice they nourished. And because they never challenge that voice, it becomes their compass, even if it leads them in the wrong direction. But the power lies in this truth. You can choose what voice you strengthen. You can replace the destructive inner voice with a stronger one. A voice that believes in you, pushes you, challenges you, and supports your growth. That voice is built the same way a muscle is built. Through repetition, intention, and consistent reinforcement. You don't erase the negative voice by arguing with it. You replace it by feeding a better one. You start by noticing the way you talk to yourself. Are your thoughts building you or breaking you? Are you speaking to yourself like someone you want to grow or someone you expect to fail? Do you encourage yourself or criticize yourself? Do you push yourself forward or pull yourself back? Awareness is the first step because you cannot change a voice you don't acknowledge. Once you become aware, you begin to take control. You start choosing what messages your mind receives. When the negative voice rises, you don't obey blindly. You don't treat it as a command. Instead, you challenge it, you question it, you replace with something stronger. This isn't fake positivity. This is mental leadership. This is taking responsibility for the thoughts that will shape your identity. If your mind says, I can't, you feed it with, I will learn. If your mind says, I always fail, you feed it with, I improve every time. If your mind says, I'm not confident, you feed it with, I'm building confidence daily. If your mind says, I'm afraid, you feed it with, I act through fear. If your mind says it's too hard, you feed it with, hard things make me stronger. Over time, your mind starts believing the new voice because it hears it more consistently. The voice you feed also comes from the environment you allow around you. The people you talk to, the content you consume, the conversations you entertain, they all influence your inner voice. If you surround yourself with people who complain, your inner voice becomes a complainer. If you surround yourself with people who doubt everything, your inner voice becomes doubtful. If you surround yourself with people who settle, your inner voice tells you settling is normal. But if you surround yourself with people who believe in growth, your inner voice becomes encouraging. If you surround yourself with people who take responsibility, your inner voice becomes accountable. If you surround yourself with people who stretch themselves, your inner voice starts pushing you to stretch too. Environment shapes inner dialogue more than most people realize. Your inner voice also becomes stronger when you act in alignment with the person you want to become. Action reinforces identity. Every time you follow through, your inner voice gains confidence. Every time you face discomfort, your inner voice becomes braver. Every time you make progress, your inner voice becomes more certain. The mind believes what you prove to it. When you act with strength, your inner voice becomes strong. When you act with fear, your inner voice becomes fearful. That's why disciplined action is essential, not just for results, but for the voice it builds inside you. The inner voice will guide you through moments when no one else is there to encourage or reassure you. When challenges hit, when doubt rises, when pressure builds, when setbacks appear, your inner voice becomes your primary source of strength or your primary source of collapse. If the voice inside you is weak, your mind breaks under pressure. If the voice inside you is strong, your mind rises above pressure. That's why feeding the right voice is not optional. It's necessary for anything you want to achieve. Over time, the voice you feed becomes the voice you follow without thinking. It shapes your perspective, your reactions, your beliefs, and your identity. It determines whether you see opportunities or obstacles, whether you see potential or limits, whether you take action or hesitate. It shapes the life you live, not because it's always right, but because you've given it permission to lead. Your life moves in the direction of the voice you empower. Your choices reflect the voice you trust. Your future grows from the voice you reinforce. The voice you feed today becomes the voice that guides you tomorrow. Discipline is the foundation of an unbreakable mind. It is the force that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck, those who evolve from those who repeat the same patterns, those who break through from those who break down. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is the commitment to act according to your goals rather than your moods. It is choosing what you want most over what you want now. Without discipline, the mind becomes fragile, easily swayed by emotion, circumstance, distraction, and fear. With discipline, the mind becomes fortified, stable, focused, and powerful. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act. They wait for inspiration, for clarity, for excitement, for some perfect spark that makes things feel easy. But motivation is unreliable. Motivation rises and falls. It disappears on the days you need it most. Discipline, however, does not depend on your feelings. Discipline steps in when motivation steps out. Discipline carries you through the moments when the work feels boring, when the progress feels slow, when the reward feels distant, when the challenge feels overwhelming. Without discipline, every setback becomes a dead end. With discipline, every setback becomes a lesson. Discipline trains your mind to override impulses. The mind is wired for comfort, for ease, for immediate gratification. It naturally gravitates toward what feels good in the moment, even if it comes at the expense of long-term growth. Discipline interrupts that pattern. It teaches the mind that not every impulse deserves action. It builds a gap between urge and decision. That gap is where power grows. That gap is where strength is built. That gap is where you shift from reacting to life to leading your life. Discipline helps you choose intentionally rather than emotionally. When discipline becomes your foundation, you no longer break when life gets challenging. You no longer spiral when your emotions rise. You no longer lose direction when uncertainty appears. You develop an internal structure that holds you steady even when everything around you feels unstable. Discipline gives you anchors, habits, routines, commitments, standards that keep your mind aligned with your purpose. With these anchors, chaos loses its power over you. Uncertainty loses its grip. Fear loses its influence. Discipline becomes a stabilizing force that keeps your mind grounded in the middle of storms. Discipline strengthens identity. Every time you do what you said you would do, you reinforce trust in yourself. You prove to your mind that you are reliable, capable, and committed. You build a reputation with yourself that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. When you repeatedly follow through on your goals, your mind begins to see you as someone who finishes what they start. That identity becomes a source of strength in moments of doubt. It becomes the voice that says, I can handle this, I don't quit, I stay consistent, I push through, I follow my vision, not my feelings. Discipline also creates clarity. When you live without discipline, everything feels chaotic. You jump from one idea to another, you lose focus, you procrastinate, you start but never finish. You get distracted easily, you feel overwhelmed because your mind is always juggling unfinished commitments. But discipline simplifies life. It gives your mind structure. It helps you prioritize. It teaches you what matters and what doesn't. When your actions are aligned with your goals, your mind becomes clearer, sharper, more intentional. Discipline removes noise and strengthens direction. Discipline demands sacrifice, but the sacrifice is temporary compared to the strength it builds. You may sacrifice comfort, but you gain confidence. You may sacrifice laziness, but you gain power. You may sacrifice ease, but you gain resilience. You may sacrifice short-term pleasure, but you gain long-term fulfillment. Weak minds avoid sacrifice because they focus only on the cost. Strong minds embrace sacrifice because they understand the return. Discipline reframes sacrifice from something you lose into something you invest. The moments where discipline is hardest are the moments where growth is greatest. It's easy to be disciplined when everything is going well, when you feel motivated, when things are exciting, when progress is visible. But true discipline shows up when life tests you, when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, when you're discouraged, when you're frustrated, when you feel alone, when you feel stuck. In those moments, discipline is not just an action, it is a form of strength. It is a declaration that your goals matter more than your temporary discomfort. Discipline also builds emotional control. When you develop the habit of following through regardless of how you feel, your emotions stop dictating your actions. You stop being controlled by fear, doubt, laziness, or insecurity. You learn to do the work even when your emotions try to pull you in the opposite direction. This emotional separation is powerful. It gives you freedom. It allows you to feel emotions without being governed by them. It helps you act with clarity instead of reactivity. Emotional control is not detachment, it is mastery. Discipline is the training ground for that mastery. Discipline influences the environment you create for yourself. A disciplined mind naturally seeks structure, cleaner spaces, better routines, healthier habits, stronger boundaries, clearer goals. Your environment begins to reflect your inner strength. You remove distractions because they no longer align with your identity. You stop tolerating chaos because it interferes with your focus. You cut out excuses because they weaken your resolve. Discipline turns your environment into a support system rather than an obstacle. Discipline is also the bridge between intention and transformation. Goals without discipline remain dreams. Plans without discipline remain ideas. Vision without discipline remains fantasy. Discipline is what turns effort into progress, progress into momentum, and momentum into achievement. It is the connective tissue between who you are and who you want to become. Without discipline, potential stays locked inside you. With discipline, potential becomes reality. What most people misunderstand is that discipline is not something you find. It is something you create. It is not a trait you either have or don't have. It is a habit built through repeated choices. You don't wake up one day suddenly disciplined. You become disciplined by making disciplined decisions over and over again. Each small decision strengthens the mental muscle. Every act of discipline compounds. Every follow-through becomes part of your identity. There will always be resistance when building discipline. The mind fights change. It seeks comfort. It wants the familiar. But the more you resist the mind's craving for ease, the stronger your discipline becomes. Every time you push through resistance, you train your mind to handle more. You teach yourself that you can act independently of comfort, independently of mood, independently of limitation. Over time, discipline becomes freedom. Not restriction, not punishment, not pressure, freedom. Freedom from procrastination, freedom from lack of control, freedom from inconsistency, freedom from regret, freedom from the cage of fleeting emotions. Discipline gives you the ability to live life on your terms, not on the terms of your impulses. The more disciplined you become, the stronger your mind grows. The stronger your mind grows, the less you are impacted by circumstances. Discipline becomes the foundation that carries you through obstacles, setbacks, challenges, uncertainties, and moments where others quit. Discipline becomes your internal anchor, your silent strength, your unshakable core. Pressure is not your enemy. It is the force that forges your strength. Most people run from pressure because they think it is a sign that something is going wrong, but pressure is often a sign that something is growing. Anything meaningful in life comes with weight. And the weight is not there to crush you, it's there to shape you. When you lift weights in the gym, the resistance tears your muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger. Life works the same way. Every challenge, every expectation, every demand placed on you has the potential to make you better if you learn to face it instead of avoiding it. Pressure exists to reveal what you're capable of, and most people never discover that capability because they spend their lives trying to stay comfortable. Think about how diamonds are made. They are created under extreme heat and pressure, conditions so intense that only something with the potential to become extraordinary can endure. Human beings are no different. The people who have achieved greatness, the people who have built something powerful, the people who have left a mark on the world, they didn't get there by escaping pressure. They got there by embracing it, by standing in it, by letting it refine them. Pressure isn't the villain, it's the catalyst. When you start treating pressure not as something to fear, but something to use, your entire mindset shifts. Suddenly, instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel challenged. Instead of feeling attacked, you feel called. Instead of feeling crushed, you feel strengthened. But the reason most people struggle with pressure is because they interpret it through emotion rather than intention. They think pressure means they're not good enough, or they're failing, or they're losing control. The truth is, pressure simply means you're moving. It means you're doing something that matters. It means you're stepping into territory that requires more from you. And that's exactly where growth begins. Your mind needs something to push against. Otherwise, it becomes soft. And a soft mind cannot carry a strong life. You build resilience by facing difficulty, not avoiding it. You build tolerance by handling expectations, not running from them. You build courage by stepping into moments that demand your best, not by shrinking into safety. Every time you feel pressure, you have a choice. You can let it weaken you, or you can let it work on you. If you see pressure as a threat, it becomes heavier. If you see pressure as a teacher, it becomes empowering. Imagine you're facing a deadline, a challenge at work, a family responsibility, or a personal goal that is stretching you. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? Try shifting to, what is this building within me? That single mindset shift transforms stress into strength. It changes anxiety into focus. It turns fear into determination. Pressure doesn't automatically produce power. It produces power when you interpret it correctly. And yet, pressure reveals something crucial. It shows you who you really are. When everything is calm, when life is easy, when nothing is demanding anything from you, anyone can appear strong. True strength is exposed under stress. It's when life squeezes you that your real identity comes out. If you panic under pressure, that means your mind still needs conditioning. If you crumble under pressure, that means your confidence needs reinforcing. If you rise under pressure, that means you've developed a foundation that can't be shaken. Pressure is the mirror that reflects your current capacity. And if you don't like what you see, that's not a reason to give up. It's a reason to build. You see, pressure is not constant. It changes as you grow. The things that once overwhelmed you eventually become things you can handle with ease. That's proof that pressure works. Think about the first time you were given responsibility that felt heavy. Maybe it was your first job, your first leadership position, your first major decision. At the time, it felt huge. Now, it probably feels normal. That's because you grew into the size of the challenge. Pressure expands your capacity. And once your capacity grows, what used to feel impossible becomes manageable. This process repeats your entire life. Pressure, growth, expansion, new pressure, new growth, new expansion. It's how you evolve. The key is to stop seeking a life without pressure. You don't actually want that. A life without pressure is a life without progress. It's a life without responsibility, without meaning, without purpose. You want a life where you are strong enough to handle the pressure that leads to your next level. If you get stronger, life stops feeling heavy. If you stay the same, life feels unbearable. People spend years trying to change their circumstances when they should be trying to change their capacity. Pressure will always be there. Your strength determines whether it breaks you or builds you. Another truth about pressure is that it exposes your habits. When life gets difficult, you fall to the level of your conditioning. If you practice discipline, focus, and clarity when things are calm, those habits support you when things get intense. But if you practice procrastination, avoidance, and self-doubt, those habits amplify your stress when pressure hits. Pressure amplifies whatever you already are. That's why mental toughness isn't something you build only in crisis. It's something you build daily. Small habits, waking up early, doing the work you promised yourself, keeping your word, pushing past excuses. These are micro pressures that build macro strength. The stronger your baseline discipline, the less external pressure affects you. And pressure also shows you what you truly value. When you're under pressure, you prioritize, you focus, you decide what matters. You cut out the noise. Pressure forces clarity. It forces commitment. It strips away the unnecessary and reveals what your heart is really invested in. Sometimes pressure exposes that you've been chasing the wrong things. Sometimes it shows you that you're capable of far more than you believed. And sometimes it shows you that you've held back for too long. Pressure is feedback. It's information. It's a signal that you're stepping into something higher. To thrive under pressure, you must trust yourself. Pressure tests your self-belief more than anything else. If you don't trust your own ability to adapt, improve, or overcome, pressure will feel paralyzing. But if you learn to trust your resilience, your resourcefulness, your capacity to figure things out no matter what, pressure becomes energizing. It becomes a sign that you're entering a higher arena. Self-trust does not come from perfection, it comes from evidence. Every challenge you've survived, every obstacle you've overcome, every disappointment you've recovered from, that is evidence. Pressure reminds you that you've already made through things that once felt impossible, that you have a history of endurance, that you are stronger than you think. Pressure can also be a powerful motivator. Some people collapse under pressure, but others rise because pressure activates their greatness. It sharpens your mind, it unlocks your focus, it triggers your potential. If you allow pressure to push you instead of crush you, it becomes a source of energy rather than exhaustion. The key is to face it with intention rather than fear. When pressure shows up, it's an invitation to become a stronger version of yourself. Pressure is inevitable, but suffering under pressure is optional.